Football is a game of mistakes. Whoever makes the fewest mistakes wins. Or at least so contends Johan Cruyff, and he certainly knew a thing or two about football. It might be a very simplistic take, but almost every single scoring opportunity will owe to an opposition mistake, or mistakes, somewhere along the line. Let's take our first game after the international break against Volos. Jones Sastra half-volleyed us into the lead on 22 minutes. He was completely alone at the far post. That's a huge mistake, right? Well, let's go back about a minute and see how we got there. A throw-in, just inside our own half. When we play it back to Liagas, Erlingmark is able to take up a position, completely unmarked, allowing us to progress the ball. 2 passes later and it's at the feet of Valencia, in yet another pocket of space because his defender momentarily switched off. That sucks in the fullback, allowing us to play it out to Sastra, whose run and cross is eventually stopped at the expense of a corner. When the corner comes in, it's dealt with well. Osman pursues the second ball, and here is another error. His angle is too shallow, allowing Erlingmark to drive uncontested into the space. He has no chance of closing down before the cross comes in. Let's just zoom out here. It's bad. Really bad. 2 players completely free at the far post. Cornet, to his credit, manages to get back to challenge, but, along with Živković, fails to make any contact. 1 minute, 4 mistakes, 1-0. Perhaps a more interesting example comes 16 minutes later from a Volos corner. We clear and break with Konstantelios. It's 2v2. We can immediately see that Volos' defenders, however, are kind of on top of one another, essentially defending the same space. It would be difficult, but an outside-of-the-boot curler from Konstantelios here, and Živković is through on goal. In fact, Živković has a couple of options here. He can carry on his trajectory, taking the open space, or he could cut across the face of the defender with an arching run. Either option would create an opportunity to be played in, or, if Konstantelios chooses to go it alone, help isolate him in a favourable 1v1 with his defender. He chooses a third option. Now, he is used in this tactic as a deep line forward on attack, and so maybe this is him fulfilling his role to drop deep and link play. But given the counter-attacking situation, this seems, at best, stupid. This is a mistake. The game will not recognise it as such. In fact, he will get a ratings boost as he sweeps home Konstantelios' cross to give us our 5th consecutive 2-0 win. What is the point I'm trying to make here? It's not that mistakes happen, but that they're an integral feature to the game. Missed tackles? Failed marking assignments. Waylaid passes. These might get the headlines, but it's the seemingly small moments that undermine structures and create gaps that play a huge part in there being chances at all. That's why a good tactical system will look to create situations that forces the opposition to make decisions. Good players will then be able to react quickly to see and take advantage of those mistakes when they arise. It's also why, when seeing a match play out via highlights, everything seems to contain a mistake. After all, good defensive decision making does not lead to highlights. A great tactical system will minimize the impact of mistakes, ensuring there is cover and contingency built into its structure, and that roles and duties are constructed to work in harmony. Of course, not all mistakes will be made by players. But then, who am I to define what a clear goal-scoring opportunity is? Despite having conceded earlier, I still have the confidence in our defensive shape to not require major changes. An advantage, perhaps, of the low block. We do not press high, and so losing a player up top is not so detrimental to our out-of-possession structure. We still have individual quality to make the most of opportunities when they do come. Incidentally, I do not know what constitutes a clear goal-scoring opportunity, as our appeal for Kouliarakis' red card was rejected. Corruption. Now, it's one thing being able to get the better of teams like Volos or Larissa. There should be no surprise when we take advantage of static defending and mismatches when the difference in quality is significant. The difficulty comes in identifying our own shortcomings and areas for improvement when we don't necessarily see our mistakes being punished. Let's head all the way back to the first game and Zivkovic's weird decision to drop deep on the counter. This is a wonderful example of a mistake that we would have never known about had Konstantelios been tackled. After all, had that happened, there would have been no highlight. And yet, it is those moments that I ultimately want to key in on. We're up to the end of November now, and that means the winter transfer window is just around the corner. If we can't see who is most frequently making poor decisions, we might end up focusing on improving the wrong areas. Thankfully, that's what makes the Champions League an absolute blessing. Save for watching every game in full, it allows us to see games against opposition who should have the quality to take advantage of our errors. Like Slavia Prague's Petr Ševčík, taking advantage of some slack marking by Liagas to peel away and give them the lead. We levelled at the third attempt from a Despodov free kick shortly thereafter. Another set piece and goalscorer Sastra was late to his assignment, allowing Masopust to put Slavia back ahead. The key highlight for me, however, was on the hour mark. Konstantelios was caught deep, but we're in a decent shape, until Sotiris decides to pursue a player who was already covered by the defender, which means Staphylidis has to keep an eye on Ševčík. The ball makes its way through to Provod, whose shot is thankfully high. Staphylidis should have been in a position to prevent that pass, but the earlier decision by Sotiris meant he couldn't. It didn't prove costly, as a Kolar error in the 87th minute allowed Palomino to equalise. Man City are not going to let us off the hook quite so easily. An early wayward pass from Erlingmark, we've seen that before, is followed by some good pressing to allow us to get back into shape. Once Palomino drops, Erlingmark takes up a very weird spot though. As the right-sided defensive midfielder, I would expect him here, but his positioning means that De Bruyne is free to help Man City bypass the press. No harm, we clear. And then when Bernardo drives forward, we converge and don't make a challenge. Saved by the linesman's flag. The next highlight, we get to see what should have happened. Erlingmark is occupying roughly the right area, and when the ball makes it to De Bruyne, he has to go backwards. Unfortunately, Man City are a very capable team and can just build up on the other side, which sucks Erlingmark over, and the next time De Bruyne sees the ball, he's in acres of space. This time, saved by Katarski. We've got lucky twice. It only seems fair that we'll get super unlucky, as a double deflection gives Man City the lead. That will go down as a Tapia own goal, but he can't be blamed for that. No surprises, however, that we're struggling against a team of Man City's ability. But too much of it is our own doing. Castillo should pass inside here to Konstantelios instead of going alone. Eventually, the ball makes its way to Haaland. We converge once again, with Palomino, the man who is marking Haaland, Erlingmark, the player responsible for that area of the pitch, and Konstantelios, who is coming back from engaging with De Bruyne. This is fine, even if in a screenshot it looks like we've overcommitted here. Sotiris comes across to engage Foden, but when the next pass is made, he is slow to get back to his assignment, which allows Diaz to play in Haaland and forces Katarski into another save. Singaras replaces Sotiris, and his weak challenge on Haaland allows for another chance. At least he was in the right position. Now it's important to understand a player's role. For example, a Segundo Volante is expected to make an attacking contribution, like scoring an injury time equaliser. That was a legitimate point though, rather than just a segue for the goal. a secondo volante is expected to contribute both in attack and defence. At our level, we are unlikely to have players for that role who excel equally in all phases. And so there is an element of expectation that they will find themselves caught short on occasions. Sotiris' shortcomings are his decision-making and positioning, while Singaras struggles with tackling, and we've seen exactly this in action. But I accept it because of what they can contribute in the attacking phase. I have greater concerns, however, about Erlingmark. As a ball-winning midfielder, I do expect there to be situations where he might over-pursue, but that doesn't account for the instances of poor positioning or questionable distribution. Now, it's worth remembering he wasn't brought in to be a starter. That was meant to be Stefan Schwab, but he rejected our contract offer and went home to Austria, and we decided to make do with Erlingmark and Staphylidis. Maybe then, Staphylidis is the answer. He started against Lyon, and it was his cross that led to Sastra giving us the lead. It was also his scything two-footed challenge that reduced us to 10 men. We have proven effective when playing at a disadvantage, and Despodov doubled our lead before a 93rd minute Ainsley Maitland-Niles header gave the French outfit a consolation. Maybe then, Staphylidis is not the answer, and that will be our priority for the January transfer window. As mentioned last year, the player search function is disabled, so our recruitment foci are set up to provide us with a pool of players. For this reason, I will not be setting a specific focus for a ball-winning midfielder, but using performance data to whittle down the pool of already scouted players. There is actually another reason too. Kouliarakis and Despodov are attracting interest from teams of far greater stature than ourselves. That makes them reluctant to enter contract negotiations, and there's a good chance that we will need to be ready to react and bring in replacements at short notice. We need our pool of scouted players to cover as many positions as possible, just in case. There are some players on our radar though. Hanover's Max Christensen and Holstein Kiel's Marko Ivazic are early front runners, who we'll keep close eyes on over the next month. Of course, there's plenty of time for things to change. Condemning Erlingmark on a short run of games is unfair, and as we head into December, a more prominent issue might emerge. Now, it's been a while since I've done a montage, so take it away. A truly drab draw against AEK and a disappointing collapse against Fenerbahce couldn't slow us down. That gives us a ridiculous 15-point lead in the league, one that feels like it might already be insurmountable. In the Champions League, we are on the cusp of qualifying for the knockout playoffs, although a top 8 finish and a bye to the round of 16 is probably beyond us, with our remaining games against Real Madrid and Ajax. we also welcomed Laratzis back from his broken ankle. Has anything changed in our assessment of Erlingmark or the rest of the team? In short, no. Erlingmark started 4 games in December and continued to make more mistakes than I'm comfortable with, especially when it came to his distribution. Now this doesn't mean he's a bad player. As stated at the top, every player makes mistakes, multiple throughout a game in fact, but Erlingmark has been more prone than others, and if we want to improve, this is an area we need to address. In theory, we should probably consider utilising Renato Tapia in this position. He is a natural defensive midfielder after all. His performances as a central defender, however, have been immense, and I would be loath to lose that, especially as our chances of keeping Kouliarakis around diminish with every day. His release clause and transfer value are unfortunately aligned at €18.5 million, and with him unwilling to enter contract talks, I'm resigned to losing him in January. We have been able to extend Konstantelios though, and in doing so raised his release clause to 30 million. This may of course all be inconsequential. After 2 further rounds of contract negotiations, even Savidas has steadfastly refused to offer any form of pay rise. Sure, I could cave in. I do want to stay and see through this project, but having established the character of Yannis Mustermann, I cannot envisage a situation where he would accept such terms. In fact, I'd go further and say that Mustermann is probably the kind of person whose willingness to stay would wane with every failed negotiation. This is all to say I have a feeling that Mustermann will be leaving in the summer, barring a remarkable turnaround of events. And so eyes have started to wander. There is, in particular, one club on our radar. Languishing mid-table in Bundesliga 2, Werder Bremen are losing patience with Enrico Maaßen, who was only appointed in the summer. Should the opportunity present itself to bring a bastardized approximation of Schafball to the place it was born, how could I say no? Whilst recent history hasn't been kind to Werder, their reputation might be too high for them to consider us. But there's no harm in trying, right? See you next time.